Okay. All right, guys, we're going to get started. It's going to be a fun session today after a week off. This will be a review for some, but it should be a good review. And you know, if you're on the newer side, then there's going to be a lot of information thrown at you. But this is, like, in my opinion, what we're talking about today. You know, the officials manual is basically your mechanics, like a referee's mechanics, where to go, where to stand, what to, you know, it's not about your calling, like what you're calling or your rules knowledge or anything like that. This is more about, you know, your movement on the court, what to do during timeouts, during, you know, last second shots, all that kind of stuff. We're going to go through all of it today for 2-person and for 3-person. So we're going to focus most of our attention, especially early on 2-person, because we have some new guys. Palmer, grab one of everything here, if you could, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
Sir.
And unless you already have books.
Not for this year.
Okay, grab those too, okay? And then, so we're going to focus mostly on 2-person since we have some new people in the room, but we will spend a little bit of time on 3, and what I may end up doing is as we're going through the 2-person stuff, I will integrate the 3-person into that discussion instead of doing that separately. So if anyone has a question, you know, 2 or 3-person mechanics, if I'm talking 2-person, if you have a question on 3-person mechanic or whatever it is, if I don't address it, then feel free to ask the question. Just remember, of course, we're on video, and your questions need to be a little bit louder, you know, so that the camera can pick them up. I have a mic, so, but your questions need to be a little bit louder, and then make sure it's a good, you know, there's no bad questions really, especially when we're learning, but, you know, make sure it's a good question and not a war story or anything like that, unless it relates to something that we specifically need to learn, okay? So that's that. I'll get into this in just a sec. We are going to also do, I'm going to do a little bit of a giveaway today, as I've done a couple other weeks. I've got and we're going through the newest officials manual, which is 2025, 2026, okay? I've got an older copy, which is 2023 through 2025. It's almost identical as far as the information in it. You know, there might be a couple very small changes, but most of the stuff is going to be pretty much exactly the same. So this is a book that is a great resource. If you don't win it today, I only got one to give away, but if you don't win it, I would highly recommend you buy this. You can buy the digital format, which I have, or the paper copy. The paper copy is going to be cheaper. You can buy it on referee.com, or you can buy it directly off of the NFHS website, okay? So either one of those. But these are fantastic resources. So I'm going to give away this book to someone today. I'm also going to give away this Clemson, whatever you call it, tumbler. So, you know, if you want to be excluded from that giveaway, you just, you know, let me know. I don't know why you would, but I don't know. I think we have more fans of the other team in here than Clemson, unfortunately. But you won't ever see that team in anything I promote. I'm just saying, okay? So you will only see Clemson Tiger gear, okay? You're right, but let's not get into that right now. Okay, all right, so without further ado, we'll get into it. At the very end, we'll do the giveaways, and I'll tell you how we're going to do that, okay? All right, so let's jump into it. All right, so we're going to skip. Now, some of this stuff we've already gone through. You know, we've talked about we've gone through signals. We did that a couple weeks ago. The terminology, I want to start there just for a minute, because there's some terminology here that we're gonna need to know. So, and I highly encourage you too, if you can, to take notes and stuff like that today. And of course, it's on the video, so you'll be able to refer to the video after this as well. So, but there's some good terminology here, and we're not going to go through all of it, but there's a few here that we're going to address throughout the day here as we talk. So I want to get to them right now. So one of them is going to be, ball watching is a big one there, right here, ball watching. So that's a bad thing, okay? Most of these terms are positive, and or you just related to our actual mechanics. But ball watching is a bad one, as it says there. It's the unfavorable condition that has officials' eyes going to the ball instead of a competitive matchup in their area. So ball watching is a bad thing, and we'll address kind of more about that and what's involved with that. I'm going to come back here just a minute, but I'm going to skip down to primary coverage area, which I'm going to relate. I'm going to basically say PCA probably the rest of the day, which is the primary area of responsibility for each official. Each official has a PCA, and it's determined by where the ball is typically, okay? So your PCA is super important. We will also talk about secondary coverage, which is not specifically in our terminology here, but we will talk about secondary coverage area, and we may even talk about dual coverage area, which I don't believe is in this either, okay? It does talk about secondary defenders, which are important as well. A couple other quick terminology points here that I want to just mention to you quickly is bump and run. I'm going to refer to that here in a few minutes. That's just a technique, basically, especially it could be 2 or 3 person. A bump and run is when one official would basically go to where the old official was and take their spot and bump and make the other official run down to the other side of the court. Okay, so we'll show that in some diagrams and stuff here in a little bit. You've also got the basic terminology of trail official, center official. Center is for 3 person. You've got trail in 2 or 3, and you've got lead in 2 or 3. Okay, so we're going to be talking about those all day long. I'm trying to think if there's anything else as far as terminologies that we're really going to be focusing on. Straight line might be a good one. We will talk a little bit about that and how to maintain or obtain angles and stuff like that as far as play calling is concerned. And I think that's pretty much going to be it as far as what we would focus on most. Okay, so let me go back to the here, and we're going to jump right into the 2-person crews, and we're gonna go in the format that the book has us in. Okay, now let me just say before we start this though, there are some things. There are 95% of this book I agree with and apply myself. Okay, there is 5% probably that's in the book. It's mechanics wise that I don't necessarily agree with or believe that we should do. So I will point those specific situations out as they come up. Okay, one of them is the lead in a 2-person crew rotating on the end line during live play. I don't feel like that's a necessary thing. Okay, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But that's one. There's also one with the timeouts, where you stand if you're in a 2-person crew, where you would stand in a timeout. Why does it have to be any different, in my opinion, than in a 3-person crew? Okay, it doesn't. There's just one less official. So I'll address that and tell you about that as well. Okay, I think those are the biggest 2 things. Maybe a couple other things as we go along that we'll talk about. Okay, all right. So, whoops, I'm not at the right spot here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is as it says here. What do we do before the game? Okay, before the game, pre-game, intermissions, timeouts. Where do we stand? Where do we go? Kind of what's our process? Okay, so as you can see right here, again, we're focusing primarily on 2-person. Okay, so as you can see by this diagram here, this is before the game starts. The R refers to the referee. The U, or a U1 or a U2, is going to refer to umpire. I don't know why they're called umpires, to be honest. I'd rather, and again, we're using the book terminology, but I'd rather go with crew chief, referee 1, referee 2, or referee 1, 2, 3. Okay, however you want to do it. We're all referees. We're not umpiring baseball. Okay, so I kind of don't like that, but it is what it is. It's been that way for years as far as being called an umpire. Okay, but that's what that refers to. The referee typically is the one that has the most experience on the crew. Typically is going to get the referee designation. They would be usually the one that tosses the ball to start the game, okay? Not always, though. You can, if one of your partners is a better, ball tosser as far as that's concerned, you can designate, and anybody can do it. That's really kind of more of a semantics thing, but the referee, assigned referee would also, or crew chief would also check the book and stuff like that before the game, okay? But this is where we're going to stand before the game here, okay? As it says down here, both officials should arrive on the court at least 15 minutes prior to game time. That's our goal on the court, 15 minutes prior. Now, I would say 10 is probably better, be on the court 10 minutes prior, because our rule book tells us that, we're supposed to check the book, the score book, to make sure that it's filled out 10 minutes prior. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a little later too. We're going to be a little flexible on that. We're not going to administer a technical foul if the book's not filled out 10 minutes before the game, okay? But typically we get on the court 10 minutes before, the referees do, and you're observing action, right? The head official, the referee crew chief, is going to go to the table at some point before the clock expires to check the book, okay? And then you would have the crew officials together would have a pregame conference with the coaches and the players, okay? We'll get into that here a little more in just a minute. But that's where you're going to stand, and you're just basically going to observe the action before the game. At halftime, once you get to halftime, you're going to meet in the middle. You don't have to meet right there. We usually, if one ref's down here and one's up here, whatever it is, you just, when the half is complete, you're just going to meet in the middle as you walk toward the table, okay? Make sure you gather the ball, you walk toward the table, and you, as a crew, okay, this says that the referee, again, the crew chief, would confirm with the score. As a crew, you're going to confirm with the scorebook that the scorebook is correct and that the clock is correct, okay? So you're going to confirm with them that information, and then you're also going to make sure that the arrow is switched, the possession arrow to start the third quarter. You switch it before you go into the locker room. So that's what you're going to do at halftime, okay? In between quarters, this is where I disagree with where you would stand. This is for quarters and for timeouts. In a two-person crew, the mechanics book says that, the referee should stand here and the other official should stand there. That's kind of stupid. Okay, if you're going, whatever direction you're going in, so if the ball is going in this direction, then this official should stand down here on the block, okay? And we're going to do the same thing for timeouts. It depends on what kind of timeout it is, but that's our next thing here coming up. So if it's going in this direction, this referee would stand here. If it's going in that direction, that referee would stand there. And this official would stand at the division line with the ball, okay? Holding the ball. All right, and then when we get into timeouts, for a 60-second timeout, again, this is based on where the ball is. So the ball is going to be thrown in right here, okay? So the official that's going to administer the throw-in will stay where the throw-in is to be administered with the ball. The other official on a 60-second timeout is going to go to that block in two-person, okay? In three-person, just so we're on that page together here, you got one official always with the ball wherever the ball is going to be thrown in. The other two officials for a 60-second timeout are going to stand on each block, okay? So you got one there, and two, one there, and one on each block in three for timeouts. If the ball is going to be thrown in up here at the division line, again, your other official is going to be standing on one of those two blocks. All right? That's for a 60-second timeout, and then this gives us play picks on the actual mechanic for a 60-second timeout, which is open hand, spread wide like this. Okay, that's a 60-second. And then you're going to point to, as that says, you're going to point to the table to start the clock. All right? The final play pick there is our first horn warning. So as we're standing in our spots, all right? So again, remember that this guy is going to be down here, okay? So as we're standing in our spots, the first horn is going to be signaled at what time? With how many seconds left in the timeout? With 15 seconds left of the timeout, okay? So when that horn goes off for that first horn, the lead official will just put the ball on the floor, walk toward the home bench and say first horn. The other official on this side will walk toward the visitor's bench and say first horn. You can also blow a whistle with that if you want. That's fine. But you don't have to blow a whistle. It's you have to indicate or notify the benches if they're still in the bench, at the bench area, in the huddle, that's their first horn. Okay? All right. So, and then what you would do is if there's three-person, this guy here would just stay with the ball, and these two officials would go to the benches, okay, in a three-person crew. All right? Now, if they're still in their huddle and you've already given them their first horn warning, okay, as the clock ticks down, you're going to stay in the huddle. I would stay close to the huddle and start encouraging them to get out of the huddle. Let's go. Come on. Come on, coach. Let's go. Time out. It's time to play. Time to play, okay? We really don't want the horn to go off for the second one if we can help it, but there are going to be times when that's going to happen. It's not the end of the world. But as soon as that horn goes off for the second one, I'm in the huddle. If they're still there, I'm in the huddle blowing my whistle. And if I got to blow a whistle in a coach's ear, I will do it, okay? Like, I'm not going to get up to his ear and blow the whistle. But I'm just going to get in the huddle, and I'm going to blow the whistle, okay? And if it happens to hit someone's ear, I'm sorry. I'm after 30 years of ref, and I'm deaf from blowing the whistle so much anyway, so you can join me on that. But anyway, okay, so the point is get in there and get them out of the huddle, okay? That's the idea. All right, so that's our mechanic for 60-second timeouts. For 30-second timeouts, it's a little bit different, okay? Again, we're going to start with 2, so this guy is going to have the ball, be with the ball, and this other official is going to stand at the top of the key on the opposite side, okay? All right? In a 3-person, we got a guy stays with the ball, and we have one official at this key and one official at this key, okay? That's how we do, and again, our warnings and first horn and all that stuff is going to be the same for a 30-second timeout as it is for a 60-second timeout. Our mechanic for a 30-second timeout is here first, okay, and then again start the clock and first horn warning, all that kind of stuff, okay. Before I move on, does anybody have any questions about any of that we've discussed so far? Any questions at all? Pretty simple, basic stuff. I mean, I would think.
Two-man just leaves the ball there and goes to the bench.
On a timeout?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just set the ball down right where it's to be thrown in. And here, let me say this as well. If we're in a situation where we have to get together as a crew during a timeout, okay, always put the ball down where it's going to be thrown in, because inevitably you're going to have a coach ask you, where's the ball going to be thrown in? I just point to the ball, okay? Or if I'm standing with the ball in my hand or whatever, then it's right here. It's going to be put in right here where I am, okay? But if I put the ball where it's going to be thrown in, then, if I'm talking to my partner for 45 seconds, last second shot, whatever it may be, okay, and I forget where the ball is or where it's going to be thrown in, well, there you go. It's right there where it was supposed to be. So always put it where it's going to be thrown in. There are rare exceptions when you can't do that. If it's in front of a bench, you probably don't want to do that, okay, like at the 28-foot mark. Here, even though this is perfect, in a perfect world, right, the benches are, back behind the 28-foot mark, but there's some gyms that we work in that might not be the case, okay? But ideally, if there's a timeout, they're going to be huddled in right here. I wouldn't necessarily put the ball down right there next to them because it could kick away, they could trip on it, whatever the case may be. So in that situation, what I would do is, if I got to get together with my partners, I'm going to hold the ball and step down here, basically outside the, where you would stand for a 30-second timeout anywhere, because it's lined up directly with where I'm going to throw the ball in, and I just have a conversation with my partner, okay? Or even if I'm not going to have a conversation, I would still do that. I'm also not going to stand there in a huddle with the team either for a timeout. That just gives coaches opportunities to, say bad things to you. So, all right. Okay, so that's our procedure there. Good question. Anything else on that? No? It's good. Okay. next thing here is the jump ball. All right, so again, in a two-person crew, your assigned referee doesn't have to be either official can toss the ball. You guys figure that out in your pregame, okay? But whoever's going to toss the ball is going to go opposite the table with the ball, okay? And your other official will stay at the table, all right? When you're ready to toss the ball, the tossing official will step in, and they will do two things primarily. They will make sure that all the players are where they're supposed to be legally, okay? Which means they need to be side by side. They cannot, Shane, come up here for a sec. So if Shane and I are on opposite teams, we cannot line up for a jump ball like this, okay? We must be side by side. I can't do this either, okay? We must be side by side for the jump ball, all right? Now, if there's space, that's a different situation. Like, if you clearly have a defender back here, right, and there's a lot of space, then that's not an issue. Thank you, Shane. But if you're right up here on the circle, you got to be side by side. So all those players up on the circle must be side by side. They can't be interlocking or in front or behind. And then your two, obviously, jumpers need to be in the circle, okay, ready to go. All right, so that's one thing you're looking for. The other thing you're looking for, if you're the tossing official, or the other thing you're going to do is blow your whistle before you toss the ball. Blow your whistle and take the whistle out of your mouth. Don't ever toss a ball with the whistle in your mouth. I've seen it a million times over the years. That's bad. That's a rookie mistake, first of all, but not only rookies do that. Don't ever toss a ball with the whistle in your mouth, okay? The reason why is because if a player goes up and they come down and pop you on the whistle with that thing in your mouth, that's going to hurt, and you don't want that. So get the whistle out of your mouth when you toss the ball, okay? So those are the two primary responsibilities for the tossing official. The responsibilities for the non-tossing official here at the table is to assist with making sure players in the right positions and start in the right positions. And then their other responsibility is going to be to chop the clock in. So before the toss is thrown up, the official is at the table there with the arm up in the air just like this. As soon as the ball is legally touched, which as soon as it's tipped, okay, that official is going to chop the clock in to start play, okay, and start the clock. Any questions on that?
You want to stand straight in front of the table or
You can move. Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, you can move a step or a step either way. I wouldn't like go way off. In two-person, I wouldn't go way off, but I would. If you need to let the scorer timer see the actual jump ball, then take a step one way or another. That's fine. In three-person, just so we're there, okay. In three-person, you got the tossing official here. One of your officials will also be right here, okay, and the other official will be right here, okay. So here and here is where the three officials will line up for a toss in a three-person game. No one at the table, okay. The clock chopping official would be this one here in a three-person crew, okay. All right. Yes.
Can a player during the jump ball, when they're side by side, have his hand like across the other player, like in front of them, like for his arm?
I don't know if the rule book specifically addresses that. I would say yes, they can, as long as it's not like they're actually not trying to hold them back. Does that make sense? Like if they're just, I don't know that I've ever really seen that. Has anybody ever seen that? It doesn't happen often. If it's, I'm not saying it's never happened, but if you see that, I would just say, look, hands at your side. Simple as that. Even though I'm not sure the rule book specifically addresses that. Okay. So, all right. All right. Good. Any other questions on that? All right. Okay. So now we're starting play. So the ball has been tossed, and the ball goes this way, okay? So in two-person, the officials are always starting in the same spot, okay? Basically, the same position, if you want to call it that. The non-tossing official will always go to the end line in the direction that the ball goes, the play goes. So in this case, it's going this way. That non-tossing official is going to come down to lead on this side of the court. And the tossing official in two-person will always become trail, and they'll come down to trail. Now that's a pretty deep trail. I wouldn't come down that far. Okay, your 28-foot mark on this side is probably where I would start out. So we'll talk about initial setup positions here in just a minute, but that's way too deep for the trail to come. Okay, but the idea is you're going to go in the direction of the ball, and the non-tossing official always goes to the end line, and then the tossing official always goes to trail in the direction of the ball. All right, it shows it that way too. All right, good. Any other questions on that?
Is there ever, what instances are there a re-jump, and whose responsibility is that?
Good question. Rejumps. So it's really either official's responsibility, but probably your non-tossing official is gonna make that call based on, it could be based on the toss. If the toss is bad, if it's not high enough, because the jump ball must be, there's a couple criteria, and I don't know them off the top of my head. But one is, the idea is you want to get the toss to the height of where the players can jump. Okay, so if it's not high enough or it's too high, which I won't name who's done this, but I've seen someone toss the ball way too high before in this room. So, but if it's not high enough or it's too high, then the non-tossing official would simply blow their whistle and do a re-jump. Okay. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to embarrass your tossing official if you can help it. So if it's not a perfectly aligned toss that goes to the absolute peak of the jump, and if it's not the perfect toss, you don't want to call it back just because it's not the perfect toss. It needs to be fairly bad for you to re-jump it. Okay. Clear advantage for one team or another, or just really high, too high or too low. Okay, that would be, I would say those would be the times when you would call a re-jump. Can anybody think of any other times that would be the case? Okay, all right, good. Okay, so now we go into court coverage. All right, during play here, obviously. All right, so we're going to start, and this is good. Okay, so again, two-person. All right, and you can see the dotted lines kind of define our court coverage, okay? You can see trail has a lot of responsibility because this is on court. This is not line coverage. This is on court coverage, okay? So we'll get to line coverage in just a minute. So the trail is responsible for all of this on the court, okay? All of that big L there is all trail's responsibility. Primary area of responsibility, PCA, okay? Lead then would have this area. Now, one thing I'm going to differ on this with is that I want actually trail to have more responsibility, believe it or not. I'm going to take this line here and go straight down the middle of the basket, okay? So I want the trail to take all plays. Now, this is plays that would originate from trail and finish at the basket on trail's side. This is for two-person, okay? Trail should have a whistle on those plays, not lead. What I do not want to see is lead making calls on this side of the basket on a shooting foul, okay? If it's a foul on the floor, a hip check out of bounds, whatever, that's fine within this area. But a play at the basket, trail must come and get that play, okay? So take that line and draw it straight down the middle. Now, as you can tell by what I just said, basically this area, that imaginary line right there, and to the other side of the line is kind of a dual coverage area for lead and trail in two-person, okay? I mentioned dual before. That means you both have responsibility depending on the situation. Okay. What I don't want to see, and I see this a lot. Is a lead, and the lead is not in good setup position here. I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. But the lead making a call on a foul right here. That's bad. Okay. Now the lead is responsible for the line. So, like if the ball goes out of bounds on the line, then the lead is responsible to blow the whistle and call that. But the lead should not be calling fouls out here. That's too far away. Okay? That's trail's responsibility. All right? So, again, we're talking about ball watching and making sure you're focusing off ball when the ball is not in your primary. If the ball's right there, because that's where the foul happened, if the ball's right there, then that's trail's already looking at that because trail knows that's their primary. Lead should not be looking at that. Lead should be kind of looking off. Lead should be looking up in this area right here for anything else. Lead can also be helping if there's a potential post matchup right here. Okay, they can extend and officiate that post matchup there. Okay, now what I will say on that is that the lead in this, so the initial setup position when you first start play, lead should be right here between the 3-point line and the nearest lane line, right in the middle. That's where the lead should set up initially. So when you come down the court after the jump ball, that official, non-tossing official comes down and sets up right there. Okay, that's your initial setup. And trail is in a good spot. They're pretty much at the 28-foot mark, a little high, but not too bad. Off the sideline a little bit, that's a great starting point for the trail. Okay? So that's how you're going to start. Any questions on PCA and the amendment here with the ball, with the line down the middle? Yes, Chris.
You said the lead and the trail's going to take more of a position. If the foul's on the front side, coming down the lane, and like he's just got his hand on him, and he can't see him holding him.
Right here?
Yeah, and he's coming down on the trail side there, in the box there, and his hand's holding him, and he can't see it in front of him. Just go ahead.
Yeah, as long as it's in this area, yes. If it's in this area, lead can come and get that. Yes, if it's in this area right here, even if it's on this side of the basket and it's a hold, again, that's in front. Yeah. Typically, that'll be the lead will have a view of that because it'll be in front of him instead of with his back to the player. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so yes, the lead can come get that. The trail very well might not be able to see that because he'll be looking at backs. Yeah, so that's a good question. Okay, so yes, the lead can extend on that. Okay, and let me say this. I mean, look, these are guidelines for us. There are times, albeit rare, okay, there are times when you will have to go outside of your primary to get an obvious foul that your primary official just went brain dead. Okay, so if there's an obvious foul right here that has to be called, okay, and a no-brainer, then the lead official can come get it. But what I don't want to see is the lead official calling marginal contact outside of their primary. I don't want the trail official calling. You should not, as an official, call marginal contact or 50-50 contact out of your primary, ever. It's got to be a 100%. That was a foul. My 90-year-old grandmother in the stands knew that was a foul. Okay? Seriously. Like, that's out of your primary, that's the way it should be. Okay? So you have to mentally train yourself to think that way and then to react that way with your eyes. It's very easy for all of us to just watch the ball wherever it goes on the court. Super easy. I mean, it's especially when you're working, 10 games in a day or whatever it is. You just get tired and, you're not there, right? But you have to talk to yourself. You have to tell yourself, look, that's not my primary. The ball's out of my primary. I always know where the ball is as an official. You always know where the ball is, but you're not always going to be, you're going to be focusing elsewhere if it's not in your primary. Any other questions on that? Okay. All right, so now this next one is line coverage. Okay, so we talked about on-court coverage. Now we're talking about if the ball goes out of bounds on one of these lines. Whose responsibility is it? again, in two-person, lead has responsibility for this sideline and this end line. Let me challenge you guys too. If anybody says baseline as a basketball official, I'd love for you to stop saying it. Baseline is a baseball term. This is an end line, not a baseline. Okay? It's just a personal pet peeve of mine. Okay? So we have an end line here, which is a lead is responsible for all the way across, and this entire sideline all the way up to the other end of the court. Lead is responsible for, which means that trail is then responsible for this sideline all the way down to the other end of the court. Trail is responsible for the division line. Okay? That's another term. Division line instead of half court line. Division line. And then obviously trail would be responsible for the far end line as well. Okay? So, procedurally, let's talk about a couple scenarios. If the ball goes out of bounds right here. Okay? So lead is over here on this side, the ball goes out of bounds right here. Very likely there's a play there. Trail has primary responsibility for the play on the court, right? Okay? So trail is probably looking at that play. And trail may have a very good idea who that ball went out of bounds on, right? Okay? Lead, on the other hand, if they're focused off ball, as they should be, if the ball is not in their primary, if they're focused in this area, they may or may not see who the ball went out of bounds on. So what do we do in that situation? Blow the whistle. So it's lead's responsibility to blow the whistle. It's not trail's responsibility. Let's get that clear first. Trail should not blow the whistle on an out of bounds line that is not their primary responsibility. Okay? And neither should lead. Lead should not blow a line out of bounds either. That's not their responsibility. So lead will blow the whistle, raise their hand, and ask for help. Help! Just say, help! Okay? And look at your partner. And, your partner in that situation, unless it's Tim Keys there in the back who's sleeping, should be able to give you information. And you don't have to come together in that situation. If I ask for help, whoever that person is out there, unless it's Tim, is going to blow their whistle and point in the direction. Call the color and point the right direction. That's all they're going to do. Yeah, sorry. So, I love Tim. But anyway, so, all right? So, you don't need to come together and talk about it or anything like that in that scenario. If I ask for help, give me the help I need and let's go. All right? Okay, now, so let's say we have the same similar situation, but we have the ball up here. Okay? Ball's up here, it's still trail's responsibility, right? Now, if the ball's up here, trail should not be over here. Trail should be out here. Okay? We'll talk about that here in a little bit in just a minute. But if the ball goes out of bounds on this sideline, lead is again responsible for the whistle and to make the final call. So if I need to ask for help, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to blow my whistle, help! And trail is going to blow it and point the direction and call the color, and we're going to go. Okay? All right? So that's how we're going to do that.
If he has no idea.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's good, Ed. If he has no idea, so he better have an idea. Okay, that's the thing. Because here's the thing. We're not going to ask for help if it's not our primary court coverage area. Okay, so I don't need to ask for help if a ball goes out of bounds here or here if I'm in lead. Okay? I should never ask for help in that. If I don't know, then we're in trouble. But you don't ask for help because that's the trail should not be looking at that. Okay? And the same thing, vice versa. Like if the ball goes out of bounds on this sideline here, the trail should not be asking the lead for help. Okay? So the only time we're asking for help in those situations is when the court coverage itself kind of dictates that. Okay? And again, if the trail is involved in the play, which they should be, and the ball just squirts out right there, then the trail should know. Now, if they don't, for whatever reason, if they didn't see it, and I'm not saying it's, it could happen, right? Then yes, your last resort is to go to a jump ball, okay? Alternating possession. All right. Now, I would rather, to be honest, let me say this for the camera, okay? Right now, right here and now, I would rather you just make something up than go to the jump ball. That's just me, okay? I'm just saying, like, if neither of you know, use some common sense. When I say make up, I mean like if the score is a 30-point difference, which team are you going to give it to? The team that's losing by 30 points, okay? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? So I'm just saying, like, use some common sense in those situations, and hopefully when it's crunch time and it's a 2-point game, you get it right, okay? Like, you get the call right, because ultimately you want to get the call right. So in that situation, if you have to, you could go there, okay? But in my personal opinion, and some of you have been in this situation, does that feel good? Does it feel good to do that? No, because you don't feel like I mean, that's what our rule book says, but you don't feel like you made a good decision, right? You missed something, which you don't want to miss. We don't want to miss anything. Our egos don't want us to miss anything. So, but depending on the situation, say 99% of the time I would just, pick something. Yeah, okay? All right, and then that 1% you can go to the jump ball. Any other questions on that? Does everybody understand the philosophy there? Okay? All right, good. Okay. 3-point responsibilities. All right, so again, 2-person. We didn't cover line coverage on 3, but those of you that are working 3 know it for the most part. So, okay, so 3-point coverage is going to be similar to your on-court coverage with one rare, exception if you want to say it that way. But Trail has responsibility for all 3-point shots all the way to the free throw line extended across to the other side. Okay? So Trail, any 3-point shot that is taken to the other side of the 3-point line extended is Trail's responsibility. They should have a preliminary signal, and then they would have, if it's made, they would have a successful signal. The only time a lead will ever have a preliminary signal, well, there's 2 times, but in the front court, in normal front court play, the only time the lead would have a preliminary 3-point signal is when the ball is below the free throw line on their side. And you're just going to put your hand up. Now, our book says that if it's made, that the lead should mirror. You don't need to mirror if you're in lead, okay? What I do if I'm in lead and I have a 3-point attempt and then it's made, I'm going to keep my hand up and look at my partner to make sure that my trail official does this, okay? I will keep my hand up until he does that, and then I drop. I am not going to mirror that from lead. That's just a personal preference. The mechanics book, I believe, says that you should do that in 2-person. So if you referee other places, do what they do, but you don't have to do it for me, okay? All right? Again, I think that's silly. It's too much, okay? So, all right, so that's your 3-point responsibility. As far as front court play, I think there's... It may be addressed later, but I'm gonna address the 3-point responsibility on a transition. Oh, a transition is addressed later. Never mind. Okay, so we'll keep going here. Double whistles. All right, so here's the next one. Double whistles. All right. Again, we're gonna be officiating in our primary responsibility. Okay, but we have a situation where we have a play basically going down the middle of the lane to the basket, right? And I've already said that I want the trail official being more active on plays on their side, right? So middle of the basket is going to be dual coverage for the most part, okay? Especially right here, right? But even toward the basket. Either official could have a whistle on that, and I'm perfectly okay with that, okay? So what happens if we both have a whistle? What's the procedure for double whistles? Eye contact is one. Patience with your whistle or with your signal? Patience with your signal. So as a general rule, whenever you call a foul, you should always go up with your fist in the whistle, okay, and look at your partners before you make any signals. Okay, I always try to do that. So that's in any situation, whether you hear another whistle or not, because there are times, there have been a few times over my career where I've blown a whistle and my partner's blown a whistle and I had no idea my partner blew a whistle because it was at the exact same time, okay? So, like, that happens, all right? So you got to get in the habit, put your fist up, look at your partners before you do the next thing, Okay? So, but that's real quick. So it's here, I'm looking, nothing, then you make your signal. Okay? All right? What we don't want to happen is we have trail and lead. They both go up with a double whistle. Okay? One goes here and one goes here. Now what? Now what? By rule, we have to apply both because they were both signaled. Okay, so we report both fouls to the table. It's a double foul. They offset. Okay, all right, but you have to report both. So you report offensive player and defensive player, and we go to the alternating possession on that. Right? If the shot's missed, if the shot's made, we're going to count it, and the other team would get the ball. So A makes the basket, you count the basket, B gets the ball on the end line.
No shots.
No free throws. No free throws. You would never shoot free throws in that situation. Okay? Even if they're in the bonus. Like even if there's a bonus, you would not shoot free throws. Okay? All right, good. So that's how we handle double whistles. Double whistles are good. They're okay, especially if it's in areas where we can have dual coverage. Okay? I encourage double whistles because that means we're working together as a team. But we don't want a double whistle when, I don't want the lead blowing a double whistle out here or the trail blowing a double whistle down there, right? Okay? We have double whistles in here is where we have double whistles. Okay? All right. Any questions on that? Good. All right, pass and crash in the lane. This is really a pass and crash anywhere. Kind of the principles for that. So, and this shows a diagram of the pass. So basically, you've got, I can't even read this, but the idea is that on a pass and crash, okay, on a pass and crash, if the player with the ball is coming out of trail's primary, okay, the trail is going to stay with that player with the ball. So once the player passes the ball, the trail follows the player, not the ball. Okay? Even if the ball goes out to the trail's primary. Follow my logic here, okay? Trail will stick with the player, okay, and make sure if there's a crash after the pass, the trail will have the whistle on that play. Now, lead can also pick that up if trail doesn't, okay? But the idea is that lead in that situation only is going to go outside their primary to pick up the ball, and trail is going to take the player. That's if the play originates from trail's primary. If it originates from lead, it's the same principle but opposite. So lead would take the player, trail would take the ball. Does everybody understand that? Pass and crash is missed a lot. We miss pass and crashes a lot, okay? So because it's just so natural and easy for us to take our eyes and follow the ball and forget about the player. That player's dribbling, they're going full speed. You got a legal defensive player right here, and I pass the ball, and then I just bowl this guy over, and the trail official, both officials potentially are watching that ball squirt out to the corner for a shot, right? It happens. But you have to train yourself, again, on those plays specifically, someone's got to watch the player, okay, and follow the play through so that we can get that foul. Now, if we have a pass and crash, what's the foul? What is it on that? How do we administer that? How do we administer a pass and crash? Is it a player control foul? No. Is it a player control foul? No, it's not. It's a team control foul. Okay? It would be considered a push. It's a charge. Yeah, the book calls it a charge. So a player control foul is a player control foul. A charge is not necessarily a player control foul, okay? Not to be confusing, but by rule book terminology, a charge is when a player without the ball runs over a defender, a legal defender. Okay, that's a charge. And you would report it as a push to the table. Okay? So, and then a player control foul is a player control foul, and it's reported, hand behind the head, point the other direction. Any questions on that? Okay, good. Rebounding areas. Two-person again. It's pretty straightforward, but you're going to see this is kind of how I like to do the court coverage anyway for trail lead, right? So trail is going to extend all the way to the basket on their side. They've got all this area for rebounding coverage, and lead's got all of that area for rebounding coverage. So this is a great diagram here just for general court coverage. Doesn't cover everything, but we're talking specifically about rebounding, which obviously rebounding is going to be around the basket, okay, typically. So that's your rebounding coverage. Did someone have something to say? Thought I heard something. Sorry. Okay. And then, okay, so this would be like, this says officiating the delay offense, or basically if play is out high, okay? So if you have play out high here, you see how far out the trail is? That's great. I love seeing that, okay? So you have, because here's the ball, okay? So like literally the trail could be here and be okay, but the defender is there. So if they're there, they need to be able to see through, okay? So you could be on this side if you wanted to, but your division line is it's a good line, because you know, if you've ever played the game of basketball, they don't really want to go past that division line if they're the offensive team in the front court, right? If they do, it's a violation. So you can get behind the division line and get out on the court without too much worry about getting in the way. The only concern you have about getting in the way is if there's a turnover, all right, which is possible, okay? But in this situation, this is the delay offense, so they're basically, running like high ball screens here, or they're passing back and forth. It's okay to be out here and officiate that and get a good look at that matchup there, okay? And this is not necessarily just for delay offense. There are times, let me give you another example. Let's say, for instance, the ball is trapped here in the corner over here. So you got a player here, offensive player with the ball, and you got two defenders right there near the division line. He's trapped, okay? Is it good for the trail to be over here or down here? Can the trail see any of that? No, not at all. The trail should be up here, behind the division line, looking through all of this right here. Get back here and officiate the play. Engage yourself in that play. And that's for trail or that's for 2 or 3 person. In 3 person, there's going to be a little bit more involved, because you could potentially have a rotation and it moves the guys around. But in 2 person, for sure, you got to get coverage where it needs to get. So that's a great example to make sure you're over there officiating that play. Any questions on that? It's good. You guys are an easy crowd. Last second shot. I expect all of you to do this exactly right on the court. Just saying. Okay. All right. Last second shot. So in 2 person, trail always, trail has last second shot responsibility. I don't care where the clock is on the court, okay? So you're going to go into some gyms, you have clock on this wall, no clock on that wall. Trail official, if we're going this way, it's easy because you can see the clock, you can, okay? But it doesn't matter. If we're going that way, if I'm the trail official, I don't need to see the clock to make a determination whether the ball is good or not. I'm going by sound, okay? If I'm looking at the clock, am I able to look and see if they've released the ball in time? Very likely not. Okay, so it doesn't matter where the clock is. Get that old school mentality out of your head. Like that's, get that out of your head if it's in there. Get it out, okay? Because it doesn't matter where the clock is on the wall. You're going by sign and you're watching the play, okay? So trail always has last second shot responsibility, okay? So shot goes up, all right? If the ball is, walk me through the procedure here. If the ball is released in time, okay, and the horn goes off while the ball's in the air, what do we do? As the trail official, what do we do? Well, 3 or 2, it doesn't matter. Yeah, if it's a 3, you're going to put up a 3, but if not, you're not going to have a whistle, okay? You have nothing really until it finishes what it's going to do. So horn goes off while the ball's in the air, it drops to the floor. What do we do? It doesn't go through the basket, it just drops to the floor. Or it bounces off the rim and drops to the floor. What do we do? Blow the whistle with the arm up in the air, okay? This is quarter, half, end of game. It doesn't matter. Anytime we have a last second shot situation, okay? You're going to blow the whistle with the hand up in the air. You do not need to do this. You don't need to wave it off, okay? Just blow the whistle. That's the if the ball is shot if the ball is in the air and the horn goes off and it's missed, just blow the whistle and put your hand up in the air. That's the end of the quarter, the end of the half, okay? All right? No reason to wave it off. If the ball is still in the player's hand when the horn goes off, what do we do then? Whistle, wave it off. Okay, that's when you wave it off. Kill it immediately. No, and a lot of times you, depending on the situation, you really could sell it. You know, I mean, if it's a last second shot, you know, down one point game, whatever it is in the last quarter, you're going to have to get out there and really, you know, really sell it, okay? Especially if you've got noise, background noise, crowd noise, stuff like that. There are times when you're going to have to get out there. They may not even hear your whistle. So I've seen guys do what I refer to as like a Peter Pan, where they're doing this like 5, 6, 7 times, okay? All right, just make sure everyone sees that it's been waved off, all right? So that's how we do that. We wave it off when it has to be waved off. Otherwise, it's just whistle, end of quarter. Okay? All right? Now, let's talk about help situations in this. Trail is responsible. Trail makes the judgment. Lead should also know. Lead should not blow their whistle or get involved in any way if they're not 100% certain. But if lead has knowledge, okay, for whatever reason, lead has knowledge. Let's say the ball is taken from this corner here. Lead's here, trail's out there. Trail still has responsibility to blow the whistle and make the call, but lead, the ball is in the lead's primary, right? Okay? So if lead has knowledge of something different than what trail calls, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do, guys, over here? I've been looking at you guys all day. Anybody know what we do over here? Take them the information. This is where you get together, okay? This is not a situation where if I'm the lead, I would come out and, you know, wave off something that my partner has counted without having a conversation with my partner first, okay? So if I have definite knowledge, and that's the only time I'm going to go and talk to the official in a situation like this, is if I have definite knowledge. I will go to the trail official and I will say, ball clearly was still in his hand when the horn sounded. Then what?
He can do whatever he wants to with it.
I let him make the final decision. I mean, it doesn't have to be a long conversation. I'm going to give information, and I don't necessarily have to walk away because it's the end of a quarter, but I'm not making the final decision. The responsible official is making the final decision, okay? But I'm giving him information so that we can get the call correct. That's the key. So I'll go and say, in my opinion, that ball was clearly in his hand before the horn went off. Or, I'm sorry, yeah, when the horn went off, the ball was clearly in his hand, right? Okay? Make the call. John, make the call.
Trust your opinion, cancel.
There you go. Boom. Whistle. Here. Okay? So if John has already done this and scored the basket, okay? All right? I come in and give him information. He blows his whistle again and says, no basket. Okay? So, and we're going to turn to the table and make sure everyone sees and hears that. James.
So in this situation, sometimes the teams will start walking to the locker room once the call has been made. So how do you make sure you do all of this fast enough to where they can see the call before they've left?
Well, if it's close and the officials get together, there's a good chance that the teams won't leave. But if they do, you have to bring them back, depending on the situation. If it's the end of the game and it's a determining factor in whether we continue to play or another team wins or whatever the case may be, then you bring them back. So if they're in the locker room and we have more game to play, you go get them out of the locker room or have game administration get them out of the locker room. Okay? Yeah. You're never going to finish a game in that way. Like if you've made a mistake and you correct the mistake in the time that can be corrected, you don't want to leave the mistake uncorrected. You always want to correct it if you can. Okay? All right, good. Good question. Anything else on that?
That's another good time right at the end of a game if you have a timeout or something and it's real close that you have a little talk with your partner about exactly where we are with that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're toward the end of a game. It's a close game. You definitely want to get with your crew and talk through scenarios. You know, you should know how many timeouts each team has left. You should know how many team fouls. You should know possession. You should know, kind of a scenario of what they might do. Okay, we can't assume, but we can assume, but we can't know for sure until they actually do it. Okay, so if a team is down by 1 point, 5 seconds on the clock, if Team B is down 1 point with 5 seconds on the clock and Team A has the ball for a throw-in, what's going to happen? They're going to foul as soon as the ball is coming bounce. Okay? So we have to be aware of that. Now, do we automatically blow our whistle for a foul and the kid gets a clean steal? That's why we got to be careful. We know that they're going to foul, but we can't just instinctively blow our whistle until we see the foul. We have to allow the play to, happen, and if they miraculously get a steal, we're going to let it happen without blowing our whistle. We don't want to get in the way of, a game ending like that. So that's a good question. Good observation there, Ed. Thank you. Okay? All right. Real quick, we're going to touch on lead and trail positions. As far as this, most of this we're going to skip through because we've already talked about. But I've already told you initial setup position for the lead is going to be right here. Okay? This is saying, they should be there. That's actually your close down position, which I didn't talk about term-wise. That would be your close down position. This is as far as a lead official is going to go during live play. The lead official will not rotate across in two-person. Here is as far as they will go. The other thing that the lead is going to do, and it may be addressed later, but we'll talk about it now. If the lead official is going to do what we call mirror the ball. So if the ball is here or that way, that's as far as the lead goes. Okay? But if as the ball comes this way, the lead will back out with and stay in line with the ball. So if Jason is my ball, okay, I'm going to stay in line with Jason even though, the middle of the court's over here. Does that make sense? As Jason moves that way, then I will move that way up to this near lane line. Okay? And I'll mirror all the way out. I'll go all the way out to the three-point line, and then what I'll do is I'll open up my stance. So when I'm set up, I got the lane right here, okay? And where's my lane? Here's my lane right here. Here's my lane right here, okay? So I'm the lead official. I'm going to move off camera here for just a minute. Lane's right there, basket's right here, okay? So I'm not going to stand like this in normal lead position. I'm going to stand with my chest angled into the lane, okay? And as the ball moves, again, as the ball moves from Adam to Christian to Chris to Tim, okay, that's when I begin to back out and mirror the ball. And then as it moves back, I walk back in. Again, this is the near lane line. This is as far as I go in two-person. Okay? That's the mirror of the ball, okay? Let's see. This is talking about lead rotating over. We're not doing that, okay? We're going to keep going here. What is this one? It's all leads rotating, I think. Okay. Movement toward the sideline. Yeah, that's what we just talked about. That's the mirror. Okay, good. Whoops. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Trail. Okay? So trail, and we've talked about trail kind of moving, getting an angle on plays. So we're not going to take a lot of time, but you do not, as a trail official, in two or three person, but especially in two, don't get yourself so locked in on that sideline like your feet are in concrete over there, okay? Get out on the court and get involved. Get engaged in plays, okay? Now, you got to know when and where to do that and certain times when you can and can't, okay? And obviously, you still have responsibility for that sideline. So if the ball goes out of bounds, you have to be able to see it. But you can move out away from the court, and I highly suggest that you do that, okay? And then up and down based on where the ball is. So the trail official is called trail because they're always trailing the ball. Lead is called lead because they're always leading the ball. So, you know, when we're in the front court here, lead is leading the ball toward this basket. Trail is behind the ball at all times for the most part. That's your guideline, okay? So, but as long as you're behind the ball, and you still want to be able to look through plays and move as you need to that way, okay? Movement off sideline, this is good. This is what we talked about earlier with, you know, we talked about the trap up here, but you can see here, the ball's over here. This is still Trail's responsibility. Trail has moved from the sideline up here so that they can officiate that play. That's good. Movement on a jump shot. This is also good to kind of take, anytime a shot is taken, Trail should kind of take a step down toward the basket so that you can kind of get a better look at rebounding action in your area, okay? Don't bail. Don't back up when a shot is taken. Move toward. That also takes discipline, training, okay? That's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're old and you can't get up and down the court like Tim back there. All right, Trail picks up shooter. We got that. Okay, that's good. We're not gonna talk about that stuff. We're not gonna talk about this. No, we're gonna keep going here. Okay, so that's trail lead. Okay, transitions. We'll touch on transitions real quick. Okay, so this is the bump and run, which I addressed at the beginning of the meeting. Okay, so you have the ball going out of bounds. You can see right now the play is in the front court. Okay, the ball goes out of bounds right there. Trail blows the whistle. Okay, calls it out of bounds, and it's going in this direction. So what's going to happen is the lead is going to come up here, bump the trail, bump the old trail and become the new trail, and the old trail is going to run down. I would just run straight across. I wouldn't run like that. You know, run straight across to the other side. Okay, that's called a bump and run, and that official becomes the new lead. Okay, so that's your bump and run. Anytime there's a transition from front court, from front court here going the other direction, full length of the court, you're going to probably do a bump and run, especially on an out of bounds. Okay, now if the ball goes out of bounds here, lead calls it, it's put in play right there, lead stays there, becomes new trail. Trail stays on this side, becomes new trail. That's not a bump and run. But if you have to switch sides, that's the bump and run. And you should always do that, okay? Do not ever do this. Do not ever, if the trail calls this out of bounds, this trail official steps to the ball here and forces that lead official to go all the way the length of the court. We don't do that. That's a no-no, okay? Do it right. Do it the way it should be done. Do the bump and run, okay? That's the way it should be done. That's the way I want to see it done. Okay. Movement off sideline. We kind of already talked about that. Especially in transition, you know, as the play goes up the court. So play's going up the court this way. Old lead to new trail after a made basket. New trail here. And the ball's up here, right? So the trail should not be over here. The trail should be engaged. As the ball goes, they should be moving. My typical guideline for that is 2 to 3 steps behind and to the side of the ball. Okay? As the trail official going up the court, you should always be 2 to 3 steps behind and to the side of the ball. All right. Lead helps in backcourt. Okay, so this is pressure. This is pressure by, so here's the ball here, getting ready for a throw-in. Okay, new trail, new lead. You notice that the lead is not down here. Okay, now there's players here. So the lead has responsibility for these players. But you also got press here. So this is saying that the lead should stand here. I don't necessarily agree with that in this scenario. I would say the lead should come down here. so that they can observe these players and still help with the press, okay? But if all players are in the front court, which you'll see on the next one of these slides, I thought was all players in the, I guess not. If they're doing a full court press and all your players other than maybe a post player and a defender are right here, or right here, then you definitely need to be up here. In other words, if you're the new lead, do not take yourself out of the play and come down here and force your partner to officiate 8 to 10 players. That's bad, okay? You need to help. Stay involved, stay active, help with those plays. As a guideline, the lead should typically stay with the very last defender. But again, in this situation, this is kind of unique because this is not a competitive matchup. Neither one of these are competitive matchups. So the lead doesn't need to be back here. If these two guys are like, if they've been going at each other and, just talking junk to each other, all that kind of stuff throughout the game or whatever, the game dictates what you would do typically. And they're right up on top of each other, then I would say you should be down here. And unfortunately, in a two-man, your partner's going to have to officiate all that. But in this scenario, stay up and help, okay? Another reason why you don't want to bail when a shot's taken, you want to stay engaged, stay in the front court, step down toward the basket, and when that shot goes through the hoop, they put the press on, you're right there. You're not already back out of position. Pass, crash, and transition. So in transition, I guess the best thing to do as far as help on plays, just keep this in mind in transition. There's not a primary coverage area necessarily in transition, okay? If a foul needs to be called, either official can get a foul, especially if it's from what I call tip to tip, top of the key to top of the key, okay? Anything in this area in transition play can be gotten by either official, okay? Now, once it gets down here, obviously lead's going to have primary in transition. If it's down in here, trail's going to have primary, okay? If it's over here, trail's going to have primary. But you want to make sure transition's can be more difficult, especially if there's pressing and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you get as good a court coverage as you can, and that's where we have to kind of extend our area, if you want to say that, so that we don't miss something, a potential foul. Okay, does that make sense? Lead helps on three-pointers. So again, this is where another instance where lead would give a signal, preliminary signal on a three-point attempt, is on a transition play. So you got a quick bang bang, shot. It's come from this way, okay? So the ball is here, it's rebounded, it's passed out super quick, lead's coming down, and trail is way back here, you can see. Right there. There's a three-point shot. Lead can, even though that's not in normal front court play, that's not lead's primary, okay? In transition, the lead can give a help preliminary signal on that, okay? Yes.
I know you mentioned that the trail. What if he gets caught up in a steal, bad pass, and he gets turned around, back turn, and there's a foul? And I know you said that you didn't like the trail to call that foul that far off. But what if the lead's got his back turn? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking about where on the court would you be talking about? Back court or front court?
It'd be front court.
Okay. So it's a transition play in the front court, and it's going to the basket would it be lead's primary?
Right.
So this is the play. This is the play right here.
Yeah, okay.
So this is where you don't ever want to turn your back to the court if you can help it. Okay. But what you can do, the court or the majority of the players. Okay. What you can do though is if you can't. I think this addresses your question. If it's a quick transition play and the lead can't get back to the end line fast enough, okay, the lead can pull up and officiate the play. This is saying the lead can go all the way there and officiate right through this play at the basket right here, okay? Wherever you need to go to get a look, typically I'm going to, if I can't make it, if the player's beating me and it's a one-on-one to the basket, I'm going to stop right about there and officiate that play. Okay? Once that play finishes, if it's a made basket, I'll continue down and officiate the throwing and all that. If it's a missed basket, then I'll make my way around and get back down into position. Okay? So that's good. Yeah. If you're beat, so here's the thing about especially 2, but even 3, when you're going from trail to lead, okay? Some of us are older in here, and some of you young guys can most of the time are going to be able to get up and down the court and beat the players, but the longer you officiate, the more you're also going to want to save your legs, okay? So there are times when you should hustle. Most of the time you should always hustle, okay? But there are times when you are going to need to evaluate the situation very quickly and make a decision. I can't beat these players down the court. They've already beaten me. I've got to get the best look at the play. So I am going to just stop and officiate, okay? So don't be afraid to do that. What you don't want to do is you don't want to, and I don't have a diagram to show you this, but you don't want the play going to the basket here and the lead official being right here. Basically straight lined. I mentioned straight lined earlier. There is no way you can see any contact if you are running side by side with the play. You can't see it, okay? You guess is what you might guess right, but it's a guess, okay? So get yourself in a position to see the play. Don't ever run beside players if you can help it, especially in a transition like that. All right, this is more of our backcourt pressure type situations here where most of the players are in the front court or in the backcourt. So the lead is staying there at the division line. That's good. No pressure in the, okay, so if there is, again, there's no pressure in the backcourt. All the players are in the new front court. The only 2 players here are the players, the player with the ball and the defender. Then the lead can get down there. Okay, so does that make sense to everybody there? Pretty easy, self-explanatory. All right, a couple more things here. We got 12 minutes to wrap this up. Reporting fouls and switching. Okay. Now, forget about the foul reporting area. I don't care about that. Okay? Here's how we're going to do this. Let me get to a here we go. Okay. Switching on fouls, lead call with free throws. So you can see the tables on that side, okay? Lead's on the opposite side. Lead has a shooting foul, okay? So leads over here, trails over here. Table's right there, okay? Lead has a foul in his primary right here, okay? Lead is going to basically, clear the players, and, you don't have to go to the reporting area. I don't care about that, okay? Just clear the players. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm okay with you walking through players too. Some people would say that's a no-no. I don't care. I walk through players all the time. I'm taking a direct path from here to the table when I report fouls. But I'm not going to really report anything until I'm clear of players. So if I'm walking this way, I'm not going to report with them potentially in my way or in the view of the table, okay? So I will walk through and clear those players if they're still there and then report, okay? But I'm walking and talking too. So I don't expect you to go to a reporting area and stop and report. I don't expect you to do that. You can walk and talk. Walk, talk, and report, okay? So the idea is that you want to look strong, have confidence, and look like you're in control, okay? So if I'm on the opposite side of where I got to go because of the table, then if I'm not going through, I'm going to come around the players, and as soon as I clear this, I'm going to begin to walk toward the table, and as I'm walking, I'm going to report. White 33 hit 2 shots. And when I'm done with my reporting, I should be basically where I want to be set up for free throws in trail position, okay? The other thing you don't want to do is walk all the way to the table. Don't ever report a foul all the way to the table, okay? Now, if you're, if there's a foul here from trail, then obviously they're already there, close to the table. But you don't need to walk right up to the table and say white 33, 2 shots. No. Rookie mistake again, okay? All right. If you're in trail, just turn around, white 33, hit 2 shots, okay? Use your voice, show strength in your signals, and do it that way, okay? But you always want to remember, just clear the players the best you can, whether you're going to go through or around, and then walk and talk. Use your voice. Whenever you report, show clear numbers. Don't ever say 3-1, say 31. But that's not 31, is it? Is that 31?
13.
That's 13, right? So that's the other thing, all right? So say 31. The first number always goes on your right hand. The second number always goes on your left hand, okay? Don't ever say fouls on white, 3-1. Is it on 3 or is it on 1? Or is it on 3-1? No, the foul's on 31, okay? Hit 2 shots. Got it? So always say the full number. Don't ever say, unless it's, it's a single number, then you got to say 3, but, you get what I'm saying, okay? All right? Any questions on that?
When should you tell your partner it's going to be 2 shots? As you was walking toward the table, you go,
Most of the time, if it's a 2-shot foul, it's clear, right? 90-some% of the time, it's going to be clear, a 2-shot foul. If it's not clear, okay, then you can, like what I'll do is I'll blow my whistle, going up, okay, 2 shots, whatever, however you want to do it, 2, he was going to the basket, something quick and simple if it's not clear. If it's clear, it's just I've got a foul, I'm walking to the table, everyone should know we're setting up for free throws, right? I'm not going to make I'm not going to say 2 shots every time I call a shooting foul. You shouldn't have to. Okay. There are times when you should, but most of the time it's just boom, clear shooting foul, he's going to the basket, right? Get everybody lined up, I'm going to report. Okay? If it's not a shooting foul, it's boom, or here. It's either this or this. Okay? Don't ever say on the floor. Spot foul. You don't. You can say spot foul, but it's if you're gonna wave off, like if they shoot the ball and you are calling a non-shooting foul, okay? It's here and then point to the floor. Okay? That's kind of the procedure for that. Okay? So now your partner knows, your partner should know 100%, and everybody else in the gym for that matter, that we're not shooting free throws, we're out of bounds. Okay? And then when you report to the table, it's white 33, push, spot out of bounds. Okay? And you point to the spot. Yes?
You said don't say on the floor.
Don't say on the floor.
Is there a reason behind that?
It's not a rule book terminology.
All the players are on the floor.
Yeah, there you go.
Before the shot. You can shoot.
I would just simply say no shot or out of bounds, or both, okay, depending on the situation. Super simple. I'd just say out of bounds, okay? All right, good. Okay, so, and that brings us to our next discussion about when to switch on non-shooting fouls. So, in this scenario, if the lead has a foul, it's a non-shooting foul. Let me back up one step. If it's a shooting foul, 100% of the time, you should switch with your partner. There should never be a time, in my opinion, in any game that you work for me, even if you're working 8 games a day, during the winter season, let me clarify that because the summer is a little different. Okay? During the winter season, there should never be a time when you don't switch on shooting fouls. You should always switch with your partner. 100% of the time. Okay? Non-shooting foul is a little different. It depends on the situation. In this scenario, you should switch. Okay? So I got a non-shooting foul from lead. Trail's going to come down and administer the throw-in. I'm going to walk to the table, report, and we're set up. It's easy. Okay? If lead's on this side and trail's over here, and lead's got a foul, we don't really need to switch. Okay? I've got a clear view to the table. White 33, push, out of bounds. I'm not even moved from my spot. I'm not walking to the table. I'm standing right here as long as I've got a clear view to the table. I'm reporting and I'm putting the ball in play. That saves steps. There's no reason to switch. Now, your mechanic book says that you should switch on all fouls. There are times when you don't have to, okay? That's a time when you don't have to. But this is a time when you do have to on a non-shooting foul, okay? Same thing with, like, if Trail has a foul and Trail's right there, why in the world would Trail and lead switch if the ball is going to be put in right there, play right there? And why would you do that? That's a waste. That's a waste of time and steps, okay? Trail reports, puts it in play, lead stays right there, okay? Use common sense in some of this stuff too. Any other questions on that? Okay. Now I will say, this may be a little contradictory, but don't look at this. But if, on a shooting foul, again, I said 100% of the time. So if Trail calls the foul, Trail and lead need to switch. Trail is reporting and then switching on a shooting foul. Okay? We are going to switch on that one. So I guess, there are times when you're going to waste some steps, but. All right. Okay, good. We got all that. And then our last one is a kind of a transition play going length of the court. Okay. If lead has a foul right here, okay, and it's a player control foul or team control foul. Okay. Lead is going to call the foul, and there is no bump and run. There is no switch. Okay. That's used to be a long switch. It was called, where this official would come down and this guy would come up, okay? You don't even have to do what this says. You literally are going to wait for the players to clear, or you can step out and have a clear view to the table. So in this situation, if I have an offensive foul right here, I'll take a few steps out, clear view to the table, white 33, player control. I step right back and put the ball in play. I'm not going up here and coming down here and forcing this official to come and take my place. We're not doing that. If we're going, it would just be like, it's treated the same way as a violation. If I call a travel right here, would we switch? Nope. It's treated the same way for a foul. Okay? I call a travel, beep, travel, out of bounds. I make my signal, I put the ball in play, and we go. Same thing for an offensive foul, team control, player control that's going the length of the floor. Any questions on that? Okay, we got two more things to go through here. Free throws and subs, and they're pretty easy, but let's just touch on them real quick, okay? Free throws, again, so now this is going to be a little different than what I would say, okay? It's not too much different, but it is a little different. What I'm going to say is that lead is going to be responsible for these three players only. So lead is across, okay? Lead's over here. During the free throw action, lead is responsible for these three players. Trail is responsible for the shooter, all the players outside the three-point line, and these three players on this side. So trail across, all three players, the shooter, and all these players, okay? For violations, free throw violations, all right? What's that? Yes, and then the other thing that Trail is responsible to do is to chop the clock in. Now, we'll get to that here in just a second, I believe. So, yeah, this talks about the first step. So, once you've made, let's say we got a shooting foul, you've made your switch, so it's a new lead. The lead's going to get everybody lined up on the lane, right? Get the shooter there. Make sure you have the correct shooter. That's important, too. Communicate that with your partner. 33 shooting, whatever it is, okay? Make sure you know that. Especially if you go into a timeout and then you come back, okay? When the timeout is granted and we have free throws, I'm going to communicate with John. Hey, John, 33 whites on the line when we come back, okay? So anyway, so now we're getting ready to shoot the free throws. Lead steps in, bounces the ball to the player, steps back, and what I would say is you don't need to be back here. If you have multiple free throws, just stand here next to the other player, right here under the block, okay? If you got multiple free throws. The last free throw, you should come back into your normal position, which would be right about here for the last free throw, okay? So lead just bounces them in, says 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shots, whatever it is, okay? And then bounces the ball and gets in position. Trail is going to set up. That's a decent setup. I would say in two-person, you maybe take a couple steps back, but you still want to be able to see the shooter and all your other responsibilities. So, and Trail is going to have a 10-second free throw, count, which you should never call, but you're going to have a visible count, okay? Visible count on a 10-second free throw situation. Never call it. On the last free throw attempt of the set, okay, when the shot goes up into the air, the trail will step down. Again, just like you would with a shot, a regular shot. Raise your arm. If the ball goes in, you drop your arm. If the ball is missed, as soon as it's touched legally by a player on the rebound, you're going to chop it in. Okay? And then you go from there. You transition or whatever you need to do from there.
Tim, I have a question.
Yes, Scott.
I've had this a few times in my career, free throw, and there's an obvious violation in your partner's coverage area. Somebody steps in and they
Okay.
don't call it. And I'm talking obvious. Are you allowed to make that call?
Absolutely, if it's obvious.
Okay.
Yep. Even though that's maybe not your primary, free throw responsibility, yes, if it's obvious, you can still call it. If your partner doesn't. This talks about technical foul administration. Obviously, you have players back at the division line. You have one shooter lead. Again, the lead doesn't need to set up there. I would just stand under the block here. Your other official is going to be basically up here at the division line or close to it. You're supposed to be officiating that shooter, but I mean, no big deal. So, be up here somewhere for trail. You shoot the shots, and then you put the ball in at the division line opposite the table for technical fouls. As far as subs are concerned, for technical fouls, do not let a sub in until you're ready to put the ball in play. You do not let subs in with one free throw to go in a technical foul situation. I've seen that happen. It's not the end of the world, but it's just one of my pet peeves. You don't need to do that. Okay? Any questions on free throw stuff? Last one is substitutions. Okay, so handling substitutions, again, it seems like it should be a basic thing, but there's a couple, nuances to it. So, typically what you're going to do with substitutions is the official that's closest to the table is going to begin the substitution process by blowing a whistle and raising a hand. Now, there are times, depending on where the ball is going, where we're going to play, where you might drop that hand and go get into position, and the other official takes it over, basically. Okay, so in this scenario here, we're in the front court. Okay, obviously tables over there, subs coming in. The trail will raise their hand, blow the whistle, beckon the sub on. Okay, and then keep the hand up until the player that he's replacing goes off. All right, and then eye contact is important here, as it is, with a lot of other things as officials. But we want to make sure we have eye contact, and this official here with the ball should not put the ball in play until we are 100% certain that we have 5 and 5 and no more or less. Okay? We can have less and be okay, but that's still not a good situation to be in. If we have more, we're in trouble. Okay? So make good eye contact, communicate well in that way, keep your arm up, make sure that you have 5 on 5. If you're transitioning, and as this scenario kind of says, so the trail, obviously, again, the trail is going to blow the whistle, it's beckon the sub on, and then what I will do, and this is kind of it could be considered a bad habit, but what I will do typically is release the sub to the official that has the ball and let them make sure before they put the ball in play that there's 5 on 5. Now you could, and you probably should, okay? You should, as a trail official, kind of stay in view, even if you are moving down the court, keep your arm up until, again, you are also confirming that there's 5 and 5, okay? So that's good practice to get into. That's it. What do we got? Anything? You guys ready to go? Get on the court and do this? That's all I got. Now, don't leave yet because, we got the giveaway here. But and you can shut the video off. Yeah. Any questions, any comments,